I'd like to welcome everybody on this. How's that? Is that better? Yes. Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody today to the dedication of our first historic mural outside by the Neighborhood Association of Sodus Point. I'm Bruce Farrington, and I'm the mural coordinator for the Neighborhood Association. And it's very gratifying to see how many people have showed up here after all the hard work that's gone in to producing this mural, the first of several. And I thank you for coming today. This mural was made possible, in part, by a very young, talented artist, James Zeger. Now, James is a local boy. He lives in Sodus. He's a graduate of RIT, and he's currently getting his master's at Oswego. His goal is to teach art locally. And after seeing some of his works, I can only be inspired for him to reach that goal. James is no stranger to murals. He's created murals, even at his young age. He's created murals in Lyons, the Street of Dreams, Winston's Dream, and the Jackson School. And locally here at Sodus Point, he's done the 4 murals that are inside Captain Jack's. One of which is the historic lighthouse, circa around 1870, soon after it was rebuilt. The steamship era, late in the 1800s. The coal trestle, they used to be here and used to help deliver coal from the trains to Canada and to Oswego power plant with the fontana in it, and also the present day with fishing boats. And if you haven't had a chance to see those murals, I highly recommend going into Captain Jack's and looking at them. They're more of the story of Sodus Point, and they're very much worth going to see. One of the promises that James asked me to make to him was that he not speak today. And James, you will not have to speak today, but you will have to stand up.
Hey James, Grace, stand up.
James, we asked for you to create a mural that would tell the story of the history of Sodus Point. And you certainly have done that. But above and beyond that, you've created a work of art that will greet people for many years to come as they come into our town. And for that, we are deeply appreciative to you. Thank you very much. Now, a little bit about how we got here today. 5 years ago, almost to the day, my wife Edith and I moved here into Sodus Point. And one of the things we learned is that after 5 years, we can now say, we live in Sodus Point. But if you want to be called a Sodus Pointer, that takes about 40 years. So we're the new kids on the blocks, the Johnny-come-lately. And one of the first things that happened when we moved into Sodus Point was we met Alice Bill. And if you know Alice Bill, that means you're going to end up volunteering for something, whether you want to or not. I've always thought that the government could save a lot of money on census in this town. Just ask Alice. She knows everybody. Well, we volunteered to work at the Sodus Lighthouse. My wife was in the gift shop and I was a docent. And as a docent, I had to read the history of Sodus Point. And I was absolutely astounded and blown away by how much history this small little town in this area around Sodus Point had. But I was somewhat disturbed to find out that many of the people, even the Sodus Pointers, don't know that history. And that bothered me. About this time, my wife and I are on our many walking expeditions, are walking through Newark and Lyons, and we're seeing all these beautiful murals. And they're telling the story of life on the Erie Canal and the history of lions in Newark. And I thought, wow, that'd be a great way to tell the story of Sodus Point. And of course, trying to find out information on those beautiful murals and lions in Newark, and now they stretch all over the place. Of course, we ran into Mr. Mural Mania himself, Mark DeCracker, who I've sent endless emails and telephone calls to during this project. And on a hiking trail, or Trailworks hiking expedition one day, he introduced me to James Zeger and said, this is the guy you need to do your murals. So we looked at some of James' work down in Newark, and in Lyons rather, and said, wow, he's really good. So we decided we've got an artist, we know what we want to do, I've got some cost estimates. Now what do we do? Well, we go back and, as the song would say, go ask Alice. And Alice said, you better go before the Neighborhood Association and see if you can get their support. So about a year ago, we did that. And I brought a proposal to them. And there was good news and there was bad news. First, the good news is they supported the Mural program. The bad news is they really supported the Mural program. And over the next few months, that morphed into doing one mural, trying to tell the story, into, well, wouldn't it be neat if we could do a series of murals telling the stories? So here I am down in January now of this year, mulling over, okay, what of the many stories that we had to tell here, which one should we do? And about that time, I start getting an email from Mark DeCracker. Oh, by the way, look at all these really neat murals that James is doing at Captain Jack's. And I looked at the 4 murals that he's currently painting and everything, and I go, wow, this is great. Look at all these stories he's telling on these murals. And then my second thought, of course, was, how the heck did they get them done so fast? And the answer to that is the man right over here, Tom Franks. I think I might have him on the mural committee here one of these days, see if we can expedite things. But he did a great job. And Tom, thank you very much for doing those murals and telling the story of Sodus Point. And also helping me eliminate a few possibilities of what our murals will be. So we got that done, and we started the mural. James has finished the first one here. You see before you, the one on the Native American fishing. It depicts Native Americans in the 1450s spearfishing near Chimney Bluffs. The word Sodus is said by most to be derived from the Indian word Assodorus, meaning silvery water. So our town is derived from a Native American word. And they used this area for fishing. The 2 Iroquois nations, Cayuga and Seneca, their nation divided right down the middle of our bay, and they used this area for fishing and hunting. The canoes that you see in this picture, some of them, they used the birch wood, which they traded with the northern tribes. They couldn't make them here. And they're beautifully decorated, as you can see. And the more common one was the elm bark canoe in the foreground, or the background rather. And they were more crude and were sort of disposable canoes. And after we saw Al Parker talk in Macedon on a recent mural dedication, and he gave his discussion, my wife decided, wouldn't it be neat if we could put a bald eagle in the background? So that's where that came from. And that's a very sacred item for the Native Americans. The Native Americans vacated this area prior to European descendants, the early Americans, settling it in 1794. And that's a little bit of the history of how we got here. Now the second mural, I just might mention that right now, the second mural has been started. It is going to be the Battle of Sodus Point that occurred here on June 19th, 1813. And that is going to be placed right here on this side between the window and the mural. So we'll have 2 murals on this side. And that one is, like I said, is underway. We expect it to be done this fall, and it'll be dedicated sometime in the spring. So stay tuned. You'll see articles in the paper about that as it progresses. Now, we're very honored today to have a man who is the historian for the Seneca tribe, which is one of the 2 tribes that use this area. And he is a descendant of Red Jacket, a very famous Native American, and also a descendant of Eli Parker, who was the secretary to Ulysses S. Grant. And one of the nice things about studying history is that it gives you a perspective that you might otherwise not have. And that perspective is this. We, mostly descendants of Europeans and Africans, settled Sodus Point in 1794. That's a little over 200 years ago. By American standards, that's a long time. The Native Americans were here in this area 20,000 years ago. Or to put that in a different way, if you think of the time that humans have habitated the Sodus Bay area, in this area, as a 24-hour clock, the Native Americans were here at 12:01 in the morning, and we, predominantly the descendants of Europeans and Africans, showed up at about 11:45 at night. So 99% of the time, this area has been habitated by Native Americans. So I think it's very fitting, with that perspective, that our first historic mural be that of the Native Americans in our area. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Al Parker, who I'm really hoping is dressed. Ah, there he is. Yeah. And without further ado,